what's happened here. Okay, back in the 80s, 1980s, the Department of Justice proposed legislation to fight terrorism. And this legislation took away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties. One of the authors, a female attorney with the Department of Justice, publicly made this statement, I've got her name on my file someplace, that before this passes, people will have to be killed. Well, so that was the reason I feel for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, the good guys, there were only 6 people killed, not enough to pass the legislation. So what happened is 3 years later, no, it was 93, 2 years later, April 19, 1995, down comes Oklahoma City Murrah building, 168 people killed. 1 year later, the anti-terrorism legislation that takes away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties is passed. And now with the Twin Towers World Trade Center episode, our Congress is now proposing further restrictions on our constitutional rights and civil liberties. These explosions, these terrorist acts, were an excuse to pass anti-terrorism legislation.
And then to implement it.
And then yes. And this is what's happening in the world today. And that's why our intelligence people are not only knew about it in advance, but probably involved. There's no question. You cannot possibly have an operation of this magnitude without our people knowing about it. Now, our government, the FBI...
Wait, when you say our government, and I got to challenge you. This isn't our government.
Well,
it's the banksters' government, because they control both political
parties. The government knows the what, where, why, and when, and how. And I had a FBI supervisor brag about this to somebody else, and it got back to me, of every patriot and every militia in the United States.
thank you for joining me today at Deanna's studio for this segment of Book Club for today, Wednesday, August the 12th. Gosh, it seems like it's been a long time since we've discussed, IBM and the Holocaust in Book Club, and that we've been in Book Club. To me, it feels like it's been, quite a long time. So we're going to go ahead and return to Book Club. We're going to be discussing, as we have been, Edwin Black's book called IBM and the Holocaust. And that is this book right here. Okay. Also, before I get into that, I'm going to be reading from this book here. It's Hanna Ehret. This is one of the covers that you'll see displayed on this book if you are to look for it. And the name of the book is The Origins of Totalitarianism. This is the expanded edition. There's another sleeve that I've seen, that when you buy the book, you might find it, the picture looking a little bit different, but it'll be either this or, I can get this thing off here. It's this book here. So this is the book here, and I'm going to be reading a little, just little texts from this, about 3 of them, before I actually get into IBM and the Holocaust. I think that these 2 books together, they go beautifully, because the spirit that is at work was at work during the Holocaust is spirit of tyranny, spirit of totalitarianism. So we're going to be discussing totalitarianism and the fruits of it, just so that we can identify when these things are at work. Because when the founders of our nation created our Constitution, it was created for the very purpose of being a shield, or being something that the American people could use as a weapon or a shield to protect us against tyranny and totalitarianism. So if the American people stay silent, though, then our Constitution has been just thrown out. So it's up to us. We at times are the ones that have to stand up and enforce it. We have to discuss it, and we have to confront it however we can. And if there are people that possibly are lawyers and those who can deal with these things on legal terms, then that's even better, if we have anybody like that that is, on our side. So, alrighty. So, I wanted to. What I wanted to mention, though, is that the whole reason why I have chosen to discuss IBM and the Holocaust is because the emphasis of this is, at least the highlighted parts. I'm not going to, like I've said in the past, I'm not going to discuss the entire book, but I've highlighted different things on pages as I've been reading through it, and it's actually, I really felt like I was supposed to do it. I just felt, it's not like I heard the voice of the Lord say, share this book, but in my heart, I felt like it was something that the Lord wanted me to do. I just had this sense, about it, that it was needed, it was necessary, it was needed as a warning. And it's something that we need to take serious. This type of warning, we need to take it serious, because you'd have to honestly be just head in the sand and blind to the different things that are taking place in our world, to not see that there's a spirit of totalitarianism and tyranny, that we are being threatened by that type of a spirit. And it's coming through the Chinese Communist Party, but in conjunction with that, also through the technocratic movement, which our current, conservative Republican government that is sitting in the White House, has embraced the technocratic fantasy, the belief system of the technocrat, and they're currently establishing the New World Order, ushering in the Antichrist. But the problem with that is something that they need to understand, is that there's a God in heaven, and he is the one that is in charge. He's the one that decides when the Antichrist comes. He's the one that decides when he's going to allow the New World Order to be ushered in. So many people, even people that flow in the prophetic gifts, they believe that these people are kind of jumping the gun. It's not the right time for that. So they're some of their efforts will be in vain. So God is the one that is in control. He's the one that is in charge of that. He's the one that directs the times and the seasons that we all live in. And he's a sovereign God. So as much as people in the White House, the technocrats and those who are pushing that agenda, that are in the White House, that are in the leadership, that are pushing that, it's not going to go as seamless as they would like, because there's a God in heaven and he is God and they are not. And that's what they're going to have to come to terms with. And it won't go well, if they push back on the will of God for this nation, because God has certain things that he has wanted to get accomplished in this nation right now in this season. And God put certain people, not everybody that's there is called of God to be there, but some of them are. And if they're not in line with the will and the plan of God, they're going to be bucking up against the will of God, and it won't go well. It won't end well. Their career, it won't end well for them. And the sooner they recognize that, the better it will be for them, for their family, and then also for the American people. If they choose to dig their heels in and go against the satanic agenda, embracing, trying to push in the Antichrist against the will of God right now, then unfortunately they're going to pay the consequences of what that's, they're going to have to deal with God about that, and so I wouldn't want to be in that place. It's a dangerous thing. The Bible said it's a fearful thing to fall in the hands of the living God, because he is very much alive. So that's the whole reason why I wanted to share this book, because there is a spirit of tyranny, there's a spirit of totalitarianism that is currently, we see it at work. We see that our current government is, and I'm talking, this is shocking to even say this, because it's not the Democratic Party that is doing this, although they did try to do it with the COVID stuff and all that. They did try to bring that in to some degree. They started to lay some groundwork for that through the COVID situation that we had. This is not coming from the hands of the American Communist Party, but it's coming from the hands of our conservative party. Of all parties, of all things, very shocking that I would even have to mention this. But we have to confront some of the ways that unfortunately our party has jumped the tracks. The train has jumped the tracks, and they're going in the direction of what Satan wants, Satan's plan, Satan's desire, and the Luciferian cult, what their desire is to bring in the New World Order. So, it's a situation that, how people, I've heard people say things like this, these little phrases like, orange is the new black, like orange is the in color. Black used to be the in color, but now orange is the new in color. So we can kind of see something along that line where it appears that the Democratic Party is now the new American Communist Party. And we're hoping that we will not have to say that about our own Republican Party, that the Republican Party is the new Democrat Party, and then what we'll have to create another conservative party that actually doesn't just claim that they are a constitutional republic, that they abide by the Constitution, that they are, truly conservative, bearing the fruits of a conservative party, which in not all ways are they doing that right now. And a lot of people are leaving the Republican Party as a result of that. And honestly, and I'm going to just be real honest, I have not left our Republican Party yet, but if they continue on in this direction of trying to bring in the Antichrist, because basically what's going on is, and I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast, it's kind of like they're building this platter, and they're putting us all on the platter, and then they're going to take it, and here you go, serve us up to the Antichrist. That's what's going on, folks. Okay? So I have never, in my whole voting life and history, I have been just die-hard conservative Republican. I've always voted Republican, and I have never thought in a million years that the thought would even cross my mind that, my goodness, am I going to have to go find another party? Because it looks like the fruits of communism is flowing right now through our party with all these flock cameras. There's no privacy for us anymore. Our brains they're allowing these technocrats to they're going to be doing things with our brains, with our bodies, the transhumanism, even the mRNA shots. Those are part of the Antichrist, the beast system, the New World Order, because what that does is that's opening the door to transhumanism to be at work within your body, merging the human body with machine, with technology, as some have said in the past. So, because right now what we see is a foundation and the very building blocks that are being established for totalitarianism to be at work in this nation. It's taking place right now amongst our own, at our own conservative party, at the hands of the Republican Party of all things. Hard to believe. And that is through the means of everything technocracy, I should say, or everything through the means of technology. And, like the artificial intelligence, the Palantir, the robotics, the drones, the transhumanism, the data centers. I mean, we can go on and on. So, and gotta say it, just gotta say it, be blunt and saying totalitarianism is unacceptable in the United States. The nation of, China, through the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, we see totalitarianism at its finest. And honestly, the United States it's starting to resemble what we see in China. And that should not be the case. That should not be so. So, totalitarian is unacceptable in a nation that claims to be land of the free. That's a slogan that we've seen for many decades back, that the United States of America is the land of the free, that we are this constitutional republic. And, we're supposed to be this MAGA party, make America great again. And I gotta say it, America is not great. America has not been made great and is not currently great if American lives are being enslaved. An enslaved America is not a great America. If our internet is being hijacked, if people's podcasts and internet activity, or even business owners, they're being shadow banned, that's the fruits of totalitarianism, just like in China, at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. America is not great if our minds are being sabotaged, our privacy, we no longer have private thoughts. But the intelligence agencies and then also Silicon Valley and all this nonsense, they're over here hijacking our minds. Our thoughts are not even private. Our health, our DNA is being changed and altered without our consent. America is not great. That whole slogan of MAGA needs to be tossed out if our government if they do not course correct and they do not change. If they don't get the train right back on the tracks and reflect the fruits of conservatism, America is not great. It's been an utter failure. If our conservative party is more concerned about establishing the New World Order, ushering in the Antichrist, America is not great. America is China. at the hands of what resembles the Chinese Communist Party at times, not all the time, but at times when it relates to all of this enslavement, the flock cameras, the data centers, the Palantir, the whole 9 yards. That's what I'm referring to. So, so that's why I'm even more convinced that sharing this book is so important right now. So, because we do not want to hear that, like the Democratic Party, it has now become the new American Communist Party. We don't want to have to hear that, like, orange is the new black. Well, MAGA is the new Democratic Party. Is that what's coming, folks? Is that what we have going on? Is that what we're going to see next? I hope not. I hope that people that are speaking out against the tyranny and the totalitarianism and all this invasion of our privacy, I hope that our current government will course correct, will hear our voices and make the changes and put a stop to all this. Because you know what? We have a constitution, we have our amendment rights, and this is our legal document to protect us against tyranny. The First Amendment, which states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. So that's why I'm sharing this book in book club. Sometimes as we read about things, we could, possibly in a book like this book that I'm reading. Or it could be a podcast that you see, or it could be something that you're just hearing about, like some type of news clip, or podcast, or documentary, or books that you may read. Sometimes as we do that, we will see glimpses of things that we have seen in the past. We'll see glimpses of those same things beginning to attempt to embed itself within our current society. And we could, and as I read this book, as I have been reading this book, I have been able to recognize, and I've discussed this before, where I'm reading this, and I'm like, this sounds like what's going on right now. This sounds like the technocrats, the work of the technocrats. So I believe that we can see this type of thing that took place many, many, many decades ago. The cruelty of the leadership of the Roman Empire. And I'm going to discuss just a little bit here about that, because I believe that what we are seeing of the whole belief system of communism, the actions, the fruit of communism that we've seen in our own nation, how all these Democrats and Mandami and all this, they've embraced socialism. Socialism is actually communism. We see the fruits of organ harvesting through the Chinese Communist Party. That is very similar to what was seen many, many, many decades, many, many years back through the Roman Empire. We can also see that same thing at work. Same spirit, totalitarianism, as in the Roman government, the Roman Empire, and I will refer to them as the Romans. We see that same thing at work within technocracy, the whole technocratic belief system, the whole technocrat, the fruit of it, the whole enslavement, the cruelty, the cruelty of it all. How they don't place a whole lot of value on humanity. And that's how it was in the Roman government, in the Roman Empire. So this is a situation where, like I mentioned, sometimes you can hear about something, take in information about it, or possibly read something in a book, or you're watching a video, and you can see correlations. You can see, what, this looks like this. And you can say, man, that is trying to embed itself in our nation right now. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. I'm not going to focus a whole lot on it, but what I did want to mention is some real basic information about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, their belief system was, the way many of us who are Christian, we believe that there is only one God. The Roman Empire, they embraced a belief system and also a religious belief system of polytheism. Poly meaning many or multiple. Theism, always relates to something related to God. So many gods, and I believe the Hindu religion, and I'm trying to think of. I think possibly Buddhism, but I'm not for sure about Buddhism. But I know that Hinduism for sure. Hinduism is a belief system of. They believe that there's many gods. And many years back when I was young, I had gone on a mission trip to Nepal, and what we were trained before, coached and trained of what we should expect and their belief systems and things that we would be confronted with and all this. What we were taught about it is that they were a nation that served many gods, hundreds of gods. We were told like a tree could be a god, a rock could be a god. They would make gods out of a lot of stuff. So they believed in polytheism. That's how the Roman Empire was. And the Roman Empire were very cruel persecutors of both the Jews and also Christianity. They were a little bit kinder to the Jewish people because they saw the Jewish people as well, they're Jews, they're from Israel, so their belief system is part of their culture. It's just a cultural belief system that has been passed on to them from their Jewish fathers. And so they looked at them a little bit kinder, but they persecuted them as well. Christianity was at that time a fairly new religion, a new religious belief system. So because of that, they didn't look as kindly as upon Christians as they did the Jews. They saw Christianity as a threat also. There was also jealousy amongst some of the government, I'll just say the leaders of the Roman government, the different ones. And so what in a sense what happened was they saw like the Christians had come from the Jewish belief system, but they cut their ties with what the forefather religion. So but they were also threatened because like in our day, and I don't know about at that time, but in our day there are threats of some who have different religious belief systems. It's like I've heard like the Chinese Communist Party, they're threatened by Christianity or the Christians in their nation because they know that of the power of God. They know that that the God of Israel, the God of that they serve, the Christians serve, is a real God, and that He does at times display His power through those who are very closely followers of Jesus Christ. They're in relationship, they're closely connected. There's a power source flowing through them. And the Chinese Communist Party, as a result, they see that it's real, and they see that they cannot control many Christians because of that. They see maybe a fearlessness of them as a result of that. So the Christians are a threat. And then also we see that through the Luciferian cult, and some within the technocratic movement, they are part of that Luciferian, no doubt, cult. So they see us at times as a threat because they can't control us, and because they know what the Bible teaches, that the power source that we have is genuine, it's true, it's more powerful than that of Satan, anything that Satan has. Satan just duplicates he copies what God has already established. So, and they know that, so they see us as a threat as a result of that. So, and so some of the reasons, some of the motives for persecuting Christians from the Roman Empire was that they did not like that Christians followed their consciences. They saw that, and I even read on some of the information that I was reading up on, I saw that they would at times try to bait or entice Christians and like to cause them to stumble. And then when the Christian would not go along with that, then they felt threatened by that, so then they would retaliate and attack them because they didn't take the bait. So it was things like that. They saw a true faith and they didn't like it, basically. So they saw Christians as inflexible, that they were very principled, they were very solid in what they believed, and they did not like that sense of, like inflexibility that they saw carried out. But if, and it kind of makes sense, because if you are embracing a belief system of polytheism, where you're very flexible and anything's a god to you, and you honor and, many gods, you look at them as gods. It's kind of like in our day, we've all heard people say, there's one God, but there's many paths to get to God. And that's not true. That's kind of a belief system that would be very similar to polytheism. The Bible says that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, that no one comes to the Father except through Jesus Christ. And in fact, many years ago, people referred to Christianity not as Christianity, but they would call it the way. Are you part of the way? And that was Christianity. Now we say that we're Christians, or Christianity. We refer to our belief system as Christianity, but many years ago, it was referred to as the way, and it's probably because of that verse where the Bible says that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And so they were threatened by Christianity as a result of that. And also just because of jealousy. There was jealousy at work. And so it caused them to persecute Christians because of them being jealous of them. So the Roman government saw Christians as enemies of gods, not the God, the only true and living God, the one God, but gods, small G-O-D apostrophe S, gods, the enemies of gods and man. And they subjected the Christians to some of the most severest tortures. Like, for example, an example of some of the tortures that the Christians had to endure was that they fed them to lions. They would just toss them, like Daniel in the lion's den. We read about that story in the Bible. Hanging them on a cross, the same way that they hung Jesus. The Roman Empire, Pontius Pilate, I think is who did it, but he hung Jesus on a cross. Jesus died on the cross. So they would put them on crosses, and they died that way. They beheaded them. One dictator, Roman dictator, or Roman emperor, I don't know if you want to call it emperor, but a head in the Roman government, his name was Diocletian, and what he would do is he would burn Christians alive. They were burned alive. So so these are some of the tortures, means and ways that Christians were tortured during the Roman Empire. So and like I mentioned, we can see patterns at times of things that we read, or information we come across, that we can see glimpses of it taking place within our nation. So, and that's why like I said, that's why as I've been reading IBM and the Holocaust, I have been able to identify little patterns and things that resemble what we are currently going through, and what the goal is of the technocratic movement that is taking place within our nation right now. So, alrighty. So, first thing I wanted to do is I'm going to read out of this book here. This is, like I said, Origins of Totalitarianism. I'm going to read 3 little segments. I'm not going to read the whole page, but and this information that I'm going to be reading, these are examples of the fruit of totalitarianism. I'm doing this because I want people to be able to, have the opportunity to be able to connect dots, use your analytical skills as I read this stuff, and also primarily as I'm reading this book, use your analytical skills and see, do you see resemblance? Do you see these similar things taking place right now in our nation that resemble this type of activity, this type of behavior, the fruit of totalitarianism that was carried out during the time of the Holocaust? And so I'm going to go ahead and read some information here. This little piece here that I'm going to read, this is taken from page 21? Yeah, page 21. It's a few paragraphs, and it says, "Nothing was so characteristic of power politics in the imperialist era than this shift from localized, limited, and therefore predictable goals of national interest to the limitless pursuit of power after power, pursuit of power after power that could roam and lay waste the whole globe with no certain nationally and territorially prescribed purpose, and hence with no predictable direction." So it refers to it as a limitless pursuit. Okay. And it says with no predictable direction. This backsliding has become apparent also in the ideological level for the famous domino theory, according to which American foreign policy feels committed to wage war in one country for the sake of the integrity of others that are not even its neighbors. It's clearly but a new version of the old great game, whose rules permitted and even dictated the consideration of the whole nations as stepping stones, or as pawns in today's terminology, for the riches and the rule over a third country, which in turn became a mere stepping stone in the unyielding process of power expansion and accumulation. It was this chain reaction inherent in imperialist power politics, and best represented on the human level by the figure of the secret agent, of which Kipling said, "When everyone is dead, the great game is finished." Have we heard of people quoting things that are similar to that? When everybody is dead, like there was one technocrat. He said that they're saying basically they were saying, I don't know if they're still saying it, but that eventually artificial intelligence is going to extinct humanity, and they're just fine with that. Okay, so it looks like this to me, and it talks about the secret agent. We're going to discuss that a little bit further on the next page or two. and only, okay, when everyone is dead, the great game is finished. Not before. And the only reason this prophecy did not come true was the constitutional restraint of the nation state. That is our only saving hope, besides trusting in the power of the living God and the mercy of God, us crying out to him. That's our only saving grace. Well, today our only hope that it will not come true in the future is based on the constitutional restraints of the American public, plus the technological restraints of the nuclear age. And I put a little note here where, based on, where it says based on the constitutional restraints of the American public. Like that, well, today our only hope that it will not come true in the future is based on the constitutional restraints of the American public. And I put down, that's only going to be the case. That is if, let's see, that is if these restraints are enforced. If we stay silent, the opposite will be true. If we stay silent and we do not force them to enforce these restraints, then the opposite will be true. Okay, and then also I wanted to just kind of clarify, because it does talk about imperialism a bit. Just real basic information. There's more to it than this, but just kind of give an idea of what imperialism believed. It was social Darwinism in conjunction to, it discussed scientific racism. Okay, social Darwinism is falsely applying survival of the fittest. And then it says scientific racism is dehumanized, colonized people. Dehumanized. The poor Jews and all those that had to endure the Holocaust, that's one of the things that this book discusses, is how they dehumanized them. That's why they gave them numbers. They no longer had a name, they had a number. That's a part on probably a lower level of the dehumanization. They carried it at a very deep level, though, to try to dehumanize them so that they can just snuff them out. Okay, I'm switching over now to page 23, just a couple of paragraphs here. I put down as a note, a shadow government is an example. It's the fruit of totalitarianism. You know how we've heard that the CIA and the FBI, that they are this shadow government that is at work behind the scenes. I've heard that from Kevin Shipp, that actually he said the CIA is actually the one that controls what goes on in the White House with every president that is there, even the current one. He said that they control the members of Congress, that the members of Congress are afraid of the CIA, and that's why that's why we're like, why are they not saying anything? Why? That's why that's going on. That's why we feel that way, because the CIA, according to Kevin Shipp, who is he used to work for the CIA, he's a whistleblower. He said that the CIA controls the White House and they control Congress. They threaten them and they pay them off at times, things like that. Okay, so this one here, it says, what seems uncomfortably clear even now is the strength of certain unseemingly uncontrollable processes that tend to shatter all hopes for constitutional development in the new nations and to undermine the Republican institutions in the old. Examples are too many to permit even cursory enumeration, but the rise of an invisible government, and I put a note there, I would say that would describe our intelligence agencies. The invisible government, those that are in the shadows, the shadow government. Kevin Shipp also said the deep state are, I believe he said it's like kind of like those within the White House and in our government, like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Obama, the Clintons, even on the right, Mike Pence, and many others on the right, the man that just died, I'm forgetting his name. The one that's married to the Chinese woman. That's what he refers to as the deep state. But he said the shadow government is actually the intelligence agencies. They are the shadow government. So there's a difference. I didn't know that. I thought they were all just, called deep state. He says sometimes people refer to them all as that's the deep state, all of that. But he says there's a difference. He says the shadow government is specifically the intelligence agencies. Okay, so it says, but the rise of an invisible government by secret services. I don't think that this means just the Secret Service. I think it's talking about, because it says services, secret services, those who are in the shadows, shadow government, the intelligence agencies, whose reach into domestic affairs, the cultural, the educational, the economic sectors of our life has only recently been revealed, is too ominous a sign to be passed under silence. There is no reason to doubt Mr. Alan W. Dulles' statement that intelligence in this country has enjoyed, since 1947, a more influential position in our government than intelligence enjoys in any other government of the world. So they enjoy this influential position. They're propped up. These power positions, money and power, it's all about money and power. Nor is there any reason to believe that this influence has decreased since he made this statement in 1958. The deadly danger of invisible government, or I'm going to call it the shadow government, to the institutions of the visible government has often been pointed out that what is perhaps less well known is the intimate traditional connection between imperialist politics and the rule by invisible government and secret agents. That would be, they're spy agencies is what they are. Okay, secret agents, spy agents. The rule by the invisible government. That sounds like what Kevin Shipp said about the CIA is the one that runs the White House. They control even the president. They control the members of Congress. Okay, that's what this is related to. Okay, I'm going to read one more page here. Okay, now I put down the disaster. These are examples of the disasters of totalitarianism. It discusses Hitler and Stalin. Okay, this book deals only with the strictly European colonial imperialism whose end came with the liquidation of British rule in India. It tells the story of the disintegration of the nation state that proved to contain nearly all the elements necessary for the subsequent rise of totalitarian movements and governments. Before the imperialist era, there was no such thing as world politics, and without it, the totalitarian claim to global rule would not have made sense. During this period, the nation-state system proved incapable of either devising new rules for the handling of foreign affairs that had become global affairs, or enforcing a Pax Romana on the rest of the world. And Pax Romana, it was referred to as the Golden Age, and it was also called Roman peace. And it says it was minimal internal conflict with the Roman Empire. So with the people, and as they relate to the Roman Empire, there was minimal internal conflict with the Roman Empire. Okay, and it says global affairs are enforcing a Pax Romana on the rest of the world. Its political narrowness and short-sightedness ended in the disaster of totalitarianism. See? disaster. And that's what our current government, who is attempting to carry this type of governing style out, they're not doing this fully, but they are building the building blocks and the foundation for this to be carried out. It's going to end in disaster. It's not going to be as most likely money making and giving them all this wealth and power as they think, because like I said, God is the one who is the ultimate one who is in control. They are not in control. God is in control. They think they're in control, but they're not. God is ultimately God, and they are not. They need to humble themselves and yield and surrender and submit to the Lord. They really do, and carry out our conservative party with the fruits of conservatism, not according to the Luciferian, the desires of the Luciferian cult, the Luciferian Brotherhood, the agents of the Antichrist, the New World Order crowd that they are catering to in alignment. Some of them are in alignment with them, okay? So there's some humbling that they need to carry out. Sometimes we all have to humble ourselves at times, and our government, our current party leaders need to humble themselves, and they need to I hope that they do make some changes, because there's a lot of people that have already left our party, and you know what? I might be one of them at one point. If it doesn't change, then I might have to consider that. I wouldn't dare vote socialist or Democrat. I would not dare, but I might do something like an independent person or something. I don't know. So. I just hope that they hear the voice of the American people, because people are very unhappy. They feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by our government. They're feeding us to the Antichrist. They're enslaving us, and that's not okay. Not in a conservative party. That is not the fruit of conservatism. So I just hope that they hear our voices and they make some changes. It's political narrowness and short-sightedness called the disaster of totalitarianism, whose unprecedented horrors have overshadowed the ominous events and the even more ominous mentality of the preceding period. Scholarly inquiry has almost exclusively concentrated on Hitler's Germany and Stalin's Russia at the expense of their less harmful predecessors. Okay, so this right here is the goal of totalitarianism, that which I've just read here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this podcast today with that, and there's going to be a part 2. And in part 2, I'm going to be discussing specifically IBM and the Holocaust and how all of this ties in. The part 2 is going to be a continuation of what I just stopped and read. So, but I'm not trying to be harsh, but I'm really sad. My heart feels so grieved because, like I said, I have been a diehard conservative, diehard Trump supporter. I voted for him twice. The first time around, I think I voted for Marco Rubio. I wasn't familiar with Trump really. So, but the other 2 times I voted for Trump. And I feel, honestly, there's a sense of betrayal that I see. And it's like, not, the party leaders are not being true to conservatism. And the fact that we are enslaved with all this technology, that's not making America great. That MAGA motto, it goes right down the tubes. This is not a great America when the American people's lives are enslaved, when our voices are being silenced, where they want to control our minds and our body, changing our DNA with mRNA. That's a complete failure. And what our government needs to take to heart is the American people are not stupid. We are very well informed, and especially if you're a Christian, you are discerning, and at times the Holy Spirit will show you things and allow you to see things. Or even we listen to the prophets and our Christian leaders, and the body of Christ. We know a lot because of the Bible, what the Bible says. So sometimes we can see, like I said, glimpses as I'm reading, as we read certain things or we hear about things, we see glimpses of what the Bible warns us of as in the book of Revelation. And so I hope that they will take this type of information to heart and course correct. I know that they want money and power, some of them, but it's not about what you guys want. It's not about you rising to money and power. It's about you being the servants of the American people who put you there. I voted for Trump, and I helped out, I felt like, in some, how I could with the campaign and all that, the last one. But not myself, but I'm talking about others. There's many people, Americans, man, they sacrificed for Trump. They worked hard. They fought for Trump to get into that White House. And it's so disappointing that when we see what's some of the things that are going on, where he's kind of, it feels like he's betrayed their trust, and like they did all this stuff for nothing. They money was invested. I mean, just the battles that people have gone through to get some of the people that are in our government in those positions, and they should honor the people and be the servants of the people like they were called to do. It's not about you guys and how much money and power and wealth and setting yourself up for the New World Order, maybe the bunker or an island or whatever, attaining those things. That's not where your focus should be. It should be being the servant of the people who put you there. So I'm hoping that there's changes. Who knows? All we can do is pray that the Lord opens their eyes and that there's changes that take place, that their hearts change, and that they do right by the American people that put them there. So, okay, I'll stop now. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this information. Please tune in to part 2, because I think it's going to be even better. I know this was a little bit harsh, but sometimes we have to discuss these things because we see the train has jumped the tracks, and it needs to be reined back in. So we all have to do our part as American citizens sometimes, and that's a right within our Constitution. We have the right to, like the First Amendment discusses, that petition the government for redress of grievances. At times, calling out, when rights are being infringed upon, and that's our right, legal right. Our voices should not be silenced. We have the right, legal right, by means of our Constitution, to be able to speak out in this way. So, and I think that we all should be doing that right now. So thank you so much, though, for tuning in, to Deanna's studio. Please tune in next week for part 2. And I also wanted to ask if you could please subscribe to Deanna's studio on Rumble. It's Deanna's, with an S, Studio 123, and it's all merged together. On YouTube, it's just Deanna's Studio. So not the one on YouTube as much, but the one on Rumble. If you could please hit the follow button to subscribe to Deanna's Studio, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and you have a blessed day. Thank you.